Hi everyone, Merry Christmas and welcome to an amazing game between a 16-year-old Bobby Fischer playing white and pal Benko playing black. We have E4, C5, Nf3 Nc6, D4, C takes D4, Knight takes D4, Knight F6, Nce4 D6. And here, if you were to look for weaknesses in black's position, then you may notice that this F7 pawn seems a bit soft. For this reason, bishop to C4 by Fischer. Queen comes out to B6 by Benko. On B6, well, we're not only attacking the knight, but also attacking B2. And by putting pressure on B2, it prevents the bishop on C1 from developing, because it is tied to the defense of the B2 pawn. The knight retreats to E2, E6. Castles, bishop E7. Bishop retreats to B3, blocking the queen from attacking B2, and therefore this bishop on C1 can now develop. Black castles. King to H1. White is looking to play F4 here, maybe F5 in the future. And to be able to achieve this pawn advance, well, you need to get the king out of the way because queen was pinning the pawn to the king. So the knight comes to A5. Maybe Benko is thinking of taking off this bishop because it is a strong bishop. It is eyeing right up this diagonal, and E6 could become soft after F4, F5. Bishop comes out to G5. Queen C5 by Benko, attacking the bishop and also clearing this B pawn to be able to advance forward. F4, B5. So maybe black's thinking of playing B4 here, and after this knight on C3 moves, this pawn on E4 would be under a lot of pressure. So Fischer gives it some extra support with knight G3, B4's played, and now E5 by Fischer, counter-attacking. Now E5 not only attacks this knight on F6, but it also opens up the E4 square for white knight to jump into, and this will be a powerful post, and is one of the key ideas. So in the game, Benko took on E5 here, but just to show you, if B takes C3, white will take the knight, and this just works out well. First of all, if bishop takes, G takes, we get this knight into this nice E4 square. Here, we've got an attack on D6, F6, and the queen on C5. So white is going to win a pawn back here, and black's king remains weak after G takes F6. If G takes F6 here by black, then bishop to H6 by white, and white will win an exchange here. You have to stop queen G4 and just give up an exchange. If you play rook D8, well, queen G4 check is going to be mating. So after E5, we have D takes E5. Fischer takes off the knight. Pawn takes bishop. Knight on C to E4. F6 is a weak point in black's position, so is the king in general now. The queen is thinking of coming out to G4, H5, and yeah, it seems very dangerous for black now. Queen to D4, and definitely no queen trade. Queen comes out to H5, and already just thinking of stuff like queen H6, knight takes F6, knight H5. It's very dangerous for black now. Benko took on B3 here. If you try E takes F4, then there's a fantastic move for white here. Knight to F5. And you have to take that knight, otherwise queen G4 check, followed by queen G7 will be mate. E takes F5, and look at these quadrupled pawns. Only for a move though, white would play rook takes F4. And now there's a threat of rook to H4, and for this reason black is going to have to just give up the queen with queen takes E4, and after rook takes queen, F takes, the knight also hangs. So after knight takes, after queen H5, knight takes B3 by black. But Fischer just ignores this knight and plays queen to H6. As I said before, knight H5 is such a huge threat here, so if you take the rook off, knight H5, you cannot stop mate now. So after queen h6, e takes f4, knight comes to h5, and now f5. So black defends the g7 square, but unfortunately, well, knight ef6 is possible now, which will win the queen. But first of all, Fischer throws in rook on a to d1, an in-between move. Now the knight isn't attacking the rook anymore, the queen moves. Now we play knight f6 check. Remember that if queen takes knight, white will play checkmate. So after queen e5, the knight comes in with check. Bishop takes knight, knight takes, you have to take the knight if king h8, this is mate again. So after knight takes f6 check, queen takes f6, queen takes f6. The knight comes back to c5, but white is winning here. Throws in a nice move actually here, queen to g5 check, forcing king h8, and now the queen comes to e7. The king is on h8, so it is not defending the rook anymore, and we just have a fork. Bishop a6, queen takes e5, bishop takes f1, rook takes f1. Here Benko resigned. After just 27 moves, we have a queen and rook against a rook and rook, completely winning. Okay, thank you very much for watching.